Okay, well. All right. All right, Andy, how are we doing? Are we ready to get started?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we have a quorum now.
Good. All right, then let's call this June 8th meeting of the Joint Transportation Committee to order. And if, Andy, if you could read the roll, please.
Yeah. Agawam. Amherst. Barnes Airport. Belchertown. Blanford. Brimfield. Chester. Chesterfield. Chicopee. Cummington. East Long Meadow.
Here.
Thank you. East Hampton. Goshen. Granby. Granville. Hadley. Hamden. Hatfield. Holland. Holyoke. I believe Chris Baker's on the line. Is he still here? All right, we'll check back with him in a second. Huntington. Long Meadow. Ludlow. Mass Pike, Marvin.
Actually, do you want to use the money in the grant?
Marvin there.
I am, but you muted me and now I'm unmuted again.
Okay, thank you, Marvin. District 1.
Yeah, good morning. I'm here. Peter.
Good morning, Peter. District 2.
Good
Yes, good.
morning, it's Laura Hanson and Tom Ruda.
Thank you, Lauren, Tom. Let's see, Middlefield. Carmen and Stavros.
She's here. I saw her.
I saw her too. Okay. Munson.
Ben Murphy here.
Thanks, Ben. Let's see, Montgomery. Northampton.
Hi, Wayne Fiden here.
Good morning, Wayne. Palmer. Pelham. Betsy, our pedestrian rep.
Here.
Morning, Betsy. Peter Pan. Pioneer Valley Railroad. PVTA.
Paul Burns for PVTA.
Morning, Paul. Plainfield. Russell. South Hadley. Southampton. Southwick. Springfield. Andy's on there. I had muted him before. There you are, Andy.
Andy's here.
Thank you.
Yep, this is Andy.
Tolland, UMass, Wales, Ware, EDC, Westfield, West Hampton, West Springfield.
Here.
Thank you. Wilbraham, Williamsburg, Worthington. Okay, that's all our members. We also have Jose Stimo from MassDOT who's going to give a presentation. We also have Chris Clem from OTP. We have a couple consultants. We have Dimitri. Let's see who else we have. Gabe from PVPC. Jeff McCullough from PVPC. Who else am I missing here?
You got
Van.
Van.
Yeah, I think that covers.
Well, I
Pretty much
see
everyone.
Connor Knightley. You haven't
Yeah,
mentioned
he's
him.
here. He's from West
Yeah.
Springfield rep, Marvin.
Right. I didn't hear him say anything though when you called.
He said here, yeah, okay.
Oh.
Anyways, we're good, Dana.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So we'll move on to agenda item number 2, minutes of the previous meeting, which was held. Actually, I think we didn't have a quorum, so we're going to need a motion for both the April 13 and the May 11 minutes. If anyone has had an opportunity to review them and is comfortable making that motion, please just state your name so we can keep a record.
Paul
So
Burns.
moved, Wayne Fiden.
Right,
Or
second,
seconded.
Paul Burns.
There we go.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a second to approve both the minutes of April 13 and May 11. Are there any additions, corrections, amendments, or other notations before we move to a vote? Hearing and seeing none. And Andy, could you read the roll?
Yep, okay, East Long Meadow,
Aye.
Holyoke,
Aye.
thank you. Mass Pike,
Aye.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
Carmen, Stavros, thank you. Munson,
Yes.
Northampton,
Yes.
pedestrian rep Betsy,
Yes.
PVTA,
Yes.
Springfield,
Yes.
and West Springfield.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Andy. We'll move on to agenda item 3. And for agenda item 3, we have a mass dot presentation. So we have a guest speaker, Jose Simo. So Andy, are you you've shared your screen and
I believe I've given him permission to share his screen now.
okay.
Totally awesome. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for the invitation. Really excited to speak to you about what Mazda has been up to helping the municipalities. So really appreciate it. And so having said that, I want to just share my screen, and that way that will start the. Let's see. And share. Please confirm that you guys can see my screen. Okay, great. So yeah, so I'm here to talk to you about a new resource that the Geospatial Technology Group, by the way, Jose Simo, GS coordinator for MassDOT. I work for the municipalities, consultants, and what have you. I evangelize every new, technology that we're using. And so I'm here to talk about the new geolocal resource. But I figured that I'd take the opportunity to sort of give you a little more context and where we're coming from and why we actually built this new resource. So I'll share some slides with you that I share with others in conferences and stuff to just sort of to help me sort of frame the context of it. So MassDOT builds municipal, at least is trying to build municipal partnerships through GIS, right? And what does that mean? How is MassDOT building municipal partnerships through GIS? And so in order to explain that, it is worth to sort of share a very brief story that is circled around the concept of coordination is powerful when the right technology is used. So just like any other story, the brief story will start from the beginning. So mind you, some of the stuff that I'll be sharing, I'm going to go through really fast and through these slides. Some of the stuff would be, technical stuff. So I'm just going to go really quickly. So again, let's start from the beginning. I'll speak a little bit about who we are, the enterprise shares platform that that we use in order to help you guys. I'll speak briefly about sophisticated project management workflows that we're using for that purpose. And then finally, I will talk about what I'm here to share with you today, which is the municipal oriented platform, GeoDoLocal. In that conversation, we'll talk about applications that you might have heard before. So I'm sorry if I'm a little repetitive, but it just brings context to the conversation. And so then, yeah, so like I said from the beginning, yeah, this is the technical stuff. It's basically how we manage the road inventory. Like, we used it as street technology, and something called roads or highways allows us to manage the backbone of our technology in order to be able to build applications and share applications and help others. And the advantages is it allows us to do that, to sort of simply just build things very easily and share very easily, and give users opportunity to edit their own information, for example, which is very powerful. So it brings me to who we are, an enterprise shares platform run out of the transportation planning in MassDOT. So this is where we build all our applications. This is where we share everything. So moving into the sophisticated project management workflow that I spoke about. So again, a lot of you probably heard about this map. It is the application that has literally transformed the way we actually select projects, not necessarily process them, but select them. Prior to this application was really difficult because there were a lot of questions were not being answered. And so the spatial intelligence allows us to do that. So it's a project development tool, geospatial data analysis, completion of forms automatically, and so forth. But then we realized that power that is spatial intelligence, we're able to build other workflows like the local aid applications within the same application. And again, most of you are familiar with that, which is the Chapter 90 Small Bridge, Safer to School, and Bottleneck, and others coming in the future. So it is, a little bit of the functionality, basic project screening, local aid, existing facility or new facility. And so the functionality is based on what they call linear reference system, based on a project location intelligent definition, meaning the user will come in, they'll put in the basic information, and then, the application will go to work. And what it will do is, using 70 plus layers of information, we'll use it to answer questions automatically. That is the beauty of it. So basically what you're looking at here is that when you enter your information and the application will say, oh, great, I have everything that I need from you. And it goes to work behind the scenes and uses information based on the definition of the extent of that project. And the highlight items that you see here are layers that actually found intersection with, and it's actually going to use it to answer those questions. Those layers that are not highlighted are layers that actually used it, but just didn't find it. And it will use it to answer these questions that you're probably familiar about: project need form and project scope form, which is, this is the problem, this is how we're going to fix it. So switching gears on that very brief story, MassDOT builds municipal partnerships through GIS, the municipal-oriented platform that I'm about to share with you. But we'll talk just briefly about the reset tool. Again, you guys are probably familiar with that. Mutual aid, very briefly, just to show you what the intention that MassDOT is trying to do here to help the municipalities. And then we'll land finally talking about Geodot Local Hub. So the reset, again, you're probably familiar with this. So what we, the idea of being intentional and purposeful in our development, what that means is that prior to this application, we know that the municipalities were having a really hard time communicating with us in terms of reporting their updates for the roads. And we all know that it is really important for them to, to do those updates, because 60% of the Chapter 90, as you know, has to do with the road mileage being reported. And as you report it, then that's how you get your funding for the Chapter 90. And the other formula goes into other things, like jobs and population, but this is the, the main thing. So prior to this, it was really difficult. It was just sending, like those forms through mail, believe it or not. We open up an envelope and somebody in GIS will open it up and put it in there. So this has actually, really make a huge change in the way we process those road updates. Mutual aid, very briefly here. So, the Mass Highway Association reached out to us and say, hey, right now, and most of you are probably familiar with the mutual aid. So we actually ended up building an emergency management tool in order to enhance the mutual aid, how the towns during an emergency help each other. So what we did here is we were able to build an application where it allowed them to do a step-by-step guided process where they can come in here and then they have all the widgets in order to be able to manage that, that event. But the county coordinators will take the phone call and go into the map and then sort of manage the application, the event in that manner. So finally, talking about the Geodot Local Hub. So what was happening here is that Geodot has quite plenty of information, right? So prior to us building this, and the reason why we did this is like, we know that the towns, the main interest of the town of communicating with us is what? Funding, of course, funding. So because we are the custodians of those fundings, right? So, but they are certain things that the municipalities will need to do in order to access those funding. So the applications, like, the map that we just talked about and the research that you just talked about. But the Geodot has a lot of information. What was happening is that the towns were having a hard time accessing that information. Where do I go? Like the Geodot is basically what they call build on an ArcGIS online technology, which means a whole bunch of galleries, what we call it, meaning a whole bunch of applications grouped in those galleries. And so what was happening is that we'll go in there and say, okay, Geodot local gallery, and they got all the applications. I got this, I got that. Where do I go? So this is what this is about. We build something specifically so that they can know where to go, a step-by-step guided process. We use an intuitive navigation, informative, related pages with every actionable application. For example, we talked about Mapit, most of you are familiar with. So before they actually go into this Mapit application, let's say they're doing a bottleneck, grant, right, application, but they don't know the bridge number, or that there's some information that they don't have about that particular bridge. Well, before they even go into the Mapit, they can go in there into this bridge application, open it up, and then find all the attributes about that particular bridge. And as far as the roads as well is concerned, they also can see the project viewer, meaning, where is MassDOT with its projects, like, how where and what phase are those projects and so forth and so on. So for further ado, let me just jump into the actual application and just go in there and show you a little bit more about it. So again, if we go into, so this is what it looks like. The municipalities will go in here, they can go in there, funding and submissions, and then they would be able to go and talk, and we'll talk to them about exactly what this is about. It's a collection of applications, Mapit, RESA, functional reclassification, and apply for GeoDot account. So a lot of applications in GeoDot will require to have a GeoDot account in order to access them. And again, as I was saying before, you can go in there and so same thing with RESA. So the idea behind here of putting these applications next to the main applications you're about to do is, again, it gives you like a cheat sheet. And I'm tempted to click this one just to give you an idea of what the intention is again. So say, we're just gonna choose one of these towns. We're gonna choose one of these dashboards. And then we're just gonna click explore. And the application goes behind the scenes, and then it goes there and propagates all the information behind it, gives you an interactive, charts over here, and it tells you a little bit about that. But here's the thing, MassDOT looks at this as a communication tool. This doesn't mean it's the latest version of the truth. It just simply means what your road network looks like to us. If you have a supported documentation that says, hey, wait a minute, MassDOT, the last time I checked, it wasn't 140, it was really like 200. What's up here? Can you help us out? Absolutely, that's the whole point. We want you guys to, and you're not gonna break anything. We want you to navigate, GeoDot local, click everywhere, and then look at the information, look at what we're looking at. And then there's something there wrong that you feel that it shouldn't be there, then please let us know. Right, so that's funding and submissions. And then, so grants over here. These are all the applications that need to be used using the Mapit application, meaning all of these are within inside the Mapit application. It's what you need to do. But then these other grants are under their own separate applications and their own. And so if you click on one of these, it'll explain to you what that grant is about. So sharing a little story about how powerful I think this is. I was working with one of the municipalities, right? And then I was helping them to try to figure out how to do the Chapter 90 in Mapit. And then he's telling me, okay, so I asked him, well, what kind of project are you doing? So we're doing some resurfacing, we're doing some, I forget what the type is. I'm not an engineer, so I can't tell you exactly what he meant. But he was talking about payment, right? And then I go, wait a second. Did you know about this new funding grant that has to do with payment? If does your project have to do with a state route number? Say yes. Okay, well, let me connect you with the funding grants coordinator, and I think you might be able to benefit from that grant. He didn't know that. So that's the whole point, for us to put things in perspective, put things, organize them in a way, and then do a step guided process. And the last thing I want to share here, and Andy, please stop me anytime if I'm going over time here. So the data viewing tab over here, what we mean by this is like, these are all we grouped all these different sources of information outside of all that process that I just showed you in order for you to just peruse over here and things that we think will be interesting and helpful to you. And we organized it, based on the theme. and then we also, I warned you about those that actually need a GeoDot account to be able to access. Everything else is accessed publicly without an account and so forth and so on. Roadways, traffic, and so forth. In other words, we're trying to just sort of make it so that it's easy to access, that it makes sense, that things connect to each other. And with that, I can open it for questions. I'm not sure how I did with time, but I can open up any questions now.
That was a great presentation. Thank you very much, Jose. We have questions for Jose.
I know
So-
I know I'm a very fast speaker, so I probably just dump a lot of information on you right now, but I'm here to answer any questions. And again,
Right,
like
so-
the
yeah,
whole,
It
go ahead.
was a ton of information, Jose, and certainly a lot to digest in a very short period of time.
Mhm.
So Jeff McCullough has a question. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, that was a great presentation. Can anyone apply for a GeoDot account?
I am so glad that you brought that question up. And without being here repetitive, let's see the point that I was trying to make earlier that I didn't get to say. All right. So yeah, absolutely. So the idea is that there's two main initiatives that Master has been committed to, which is give access to our systems. Meaning most municipalities that talk to us, we give them a GeoDot account, and we also intend to help them with the workflows as well. Meaning if they don't have an asset management going, we don't mean that we're going to build an asset management for them, but say they're being wanted to just, to keep track of the lights or keep track of this or that, we can actually help them build a very simple application they can use on their phone and then send their maintenance crew, which is going to be out there anyways. And then they can click, 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 click. Now the information is on the GeoDot, platform, and we can help them sort of build an application that it speaks about what the asset, it's about. And the idea there is to gain trust and buy-in by being intentional, like be honest about what's in it for me and demonstrate how it's a win-win. Meaning, I didn't show you the project viewer, but say the municipality is planning a project, and then MassDOT happens to be in that area building a project, and the municipality looks at that project viewer and says, "Oh, wait a second, MassDOT, you're doing a project on that in my area." And it happens to include a payment resurfacing or whatever it is. It looks very similar to what I'm trying to do. Wouldn't that be a perfect opportunity for us to coordinate? Absolutely, it is. So that was a long-winded way to answer the question. Yes, we do give access to GeoDots, including consultants and MPOs, as long as the intention is to help those municipalities.
Thank you, Jose. Betsy, you have a question?
Well, yes, it still wasn't clear. So it's municipalities, consultants. What about community, I'll call it advocacy, related community advocacy groups or bike ped committees in a given community? Can they get access?
No, absolutely. So again, it's where what we're trying to do is use the platform to do a common ground to keep our transportation network in good shape, right? So what I mean by that is organizationally, like to your point, Jose, we've been thinking to improve, or this is the goal, or what have you. This is how we're going to use GeoDot. Can we have an account? Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, you don't need an account in order to access most of the information here. What the GeoDot account does is allows for us to help you build something. It allows us for us to give you access to applications that actually does something. But there's a ton of information here that you don't need an account for. So we want to sort of be, and once you all have an access, a Geodot account, then we'll engage with you and say, hey, what is the project? What is the goal? And then we'll be able to actually help you with that. Like, because you can walk in here and see so many things. We can give you an account and you'll be going all over the place and say, okay, wow, a lot of information here. Well, what do I do with it? And that's where we come in. Does that answer the question?
Well, do you just go to the Geodot website and then that's how, what's the entry point there?
So yeah, exactly. So at the bottom over here, there is a link where you can go and access it. They ask for it. So right here, Geodot account. You click on here, you put in your basic information, and someone from our team will give you access.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Jose. That was an excellent presentation, and thank you for all the great questions, everyone.
I appreciate it, Dana. Thank you so much.
So with that, we'll go on to agenda item number 4, where we have a presentation by our Economic and Municipal Collaborations Director, Eric Weiss. So Eric, I see, yes, we've already shared screen with you, so floor is yours, Eric.
Good morning, all. I had a conversation with Gary a while ago saying that it would be great for me to come talk to this group just to inform this group of what else goes on at the PVPC. I have a meeting with the boss at 11 o'clock, so I have a hard stop at 11 o'clock or a little bit before that. So one of the roles, you can go to the next slide, Andy. One of the roles of the PVPC is in economic development, and we're actually making an intentional push to expand our role in economic development because we recognize that economic development is an area where public and private interest needs intersect. We also are in the process of wrapping up what's called a EDA CARES grant, which we received to evaluate the effects of the pandemic on the region economically. And we've learned quite a bit of some of which I'll go over this morning with you just to give you an idea of the kinds of things we worked on. That's been going on for 2 years, and we are now somewhat like this committee. We have become a convener for economic development in the region. As a result of, we have created a task force that many of the municipalities and other groups, there's a lot of different people on it. There's the colleges, the municipalities, there's people from advocacy groups. It's a pretty mixed group, pretty diverse group of people that we talk to move this issue forward. Next slide. So since 2020, July 2020, we have been working on this effort. Like I just said, it includes people from all over the region. And one of the things that we're really trying to do is make sure that we work with the local communities, the people of color, the quote unquote BIPOC community, in a way that has not happened before. So that we directly communicate with the groups as to what their needs are and don't pretend like we know just from sitting here that we know what's going on in their area and what they need. Next slide. So this is an example of all the people that were involved, some of which you may know. I am not going to read this list, but I'll leave it up there for a minute, just to give you an idea of the wide array of people that participated with us. And we had many different meetings, workshops. We used whiteboard technology. We used a sticky note technology to be able to do things. We got quite a bit of feedback and input. We, as you can see, it was, again, I'm repeating myself, but it's important that you recognize that we had as diverse a group of people as we could find: business, development people, municipal people involved. Next slide, please. One of the challenges we have here in the Pioneer Valley is that we are a segregated region, whether we want to talk about it a lot or not. It is a well-documented issue, and especially in the city of Springfield, and that there's an intersectionality of issues here in terms of barriers and the need to collaborate to improve this. So with this grant effort, we were trying to identify key areas to be addressed to help overcome some of the barriers that the BIPOC community in particular faces in terms of access to capital, resources and information, skills and education training. And now I've blocked my own view of everything. Barriers to creating small businesses. A lot of people can create a business, but they don't know how to grow a business. They have a great idea. And then there's pieces which relate to everything, which is that people can't go to work if they have children and they don't have good access to quality childcare. And one that comes before this group and something that I know that Andy and Dana and Gary work on is transportation and public transportation and regional transportation. It's hard for people to get to jobs if they don't have the transportation and the ability to get there. Next slide, please. Part of what we did was we collected lots and lots of data, and we collected lots and lots of unemployment data. And this graph is not a shock to anybody who will look at it, which basically says that during the peak of the pandemic, when everything was shutting down last March and April and May, that's when the unemployment rates hit their peak of close to 24%, which was absolutely astounding when you look at the numbers. And then you can see the gradual recovery that we've had here. But you can also see that the rates are remaining slightly higher than they were before the pandemic. That is widely recognized. And that you can look at your bigger cities, specifically Springfield and Holyoke, and see that the rates are remaining stubbornly high. Not outrageous, but certainly stubbornly high, which says that we have more to do and there's more that needs to be done. So part of what we got funded under this grant effort was the ability to build up our Pioneer Valley database. I know in particular, Doug Hall, who I don't know if he's been before the JTC group, but he does a great job with managing and handling data for us, and he put this together for us. And so this is one of the bellwether slides that I use to show one of the effects of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So what we're trying to do, and it's a long ways from here to there, is to help rebuild the regional economy so it can be more exclusive, equitable, and resilient. And what that means is representing all groups, not groups that traditionally were favored in the system, but all groups. We have what we would call an incomplete ecosystem, where some people have better access to the resources, training materials, financial materials that they had. And like everything else with COVID-19, it only exacerbated or made it more prominent that these pre-existing conditions are a challenge that needs to be overcome. Both in the BIPOC community and no secret to anybody, women were very affected by the change in the economy and the pandemic because they needed to be home. So these are not new pieces, but it does recognize that our system is no different than any other area. We have the same challenges as everybody else. So one of our goals is to create a regional business ecosystem network, which means provide the information almost like a clearinghouse or almost like a support center, like they do for workforce development, in which we can give the community that needs access to information and financial literacy and an advocate and somebody to help steer them through the process. Because traditionally, if I'm a person of color and I go to borrow money and I'm told no by a bank, then my efforts stop, which means that I'm not going to develop what I was planning on developing, a business, a restaurant, whatever it is. What we need is to change that behavior. We need to change the behavior both on the side of the lender and on the side of the people looking for the money to say, look, we're looking to try to make this better. How do we help move this forward? Maybe it's relaxing a bid specification so that it says that somebody doesn't have to have 10 years experience, they can have a few years experience, or the amount of capital they need to put up for a project because they don't have the same capital as a long-term firm. There are places we can look to make these kinds of things happen. Next slide, please. So there were three parts to the EDA CARES grant. One was economic scenario planning, which I'll talk about in a moment. The other one was communicating directly with the BIPOC communities. And the third one is really working directly with the rural communities, which we've done. And I'm not trying to rush. I just know I have a hard stop at 10:55. The economic scenario planning was more traditional. It was where we tried to evaluate the effects on the workforce, how things have changed, what's some new workforce areas that we need to start looking at, things like clean energy and cybersecurity. What are some of the more traditional things in terms of supporting business and home ownership in the BIPOC community? How do we work to provide the information that people are looking for? How do we support access to that information? And the one that we've heard the most about is sort of breaking down the barriers and the issue of systemic racism, that the barriers exist, whether anybody wants to talk about them or not, they're there. And so what we really need to do both is look at government policies and see how we can change them, get the local agencies that are all working towards the same goal of employment to work together better, to make lenders more equitable and fair, and they know they need to do this. This is not a shock in how they move ahead in terms of their lending practices. Go ahead, next slide, please. So for example, when you look at the business by sector, again, this is from April 19th to now to 22, you can see that there are areas that still need work. And so if we're going to help support things, maybe these are some of the areas that we can help support development in. Maybe these are the kinds of things that we need to do to help move things forward. And then there are some of the hidden challenges we have, that there have been changes, for example, in the way that people approach higher education. And more people are looking at it as an online. The well of people that the institutions can draw on is much smaller than it was. Some of this is a result of the pandemic, and some of it is just a demographic dip in the number of people that will be going off to college is coming, that is affecting some of that. So there's some real issues in terms of how that works. And so this would be a way, if I'm looking to target and go into business, maybe I could help fill in some of those gaps that are there that exist. Next slide, please. So we're down to producing our final products. We're calling it a recovery roadmap, which is basically a pathway to show how we can move forward. It's going to require a lot of collaboration and a lot of cooperation between not just key elements, but key partners that we've been working with. This has never been done before around here. We've taken on a big challenge by doing this. We're also making it action oriented. We don't want to create a study that just sits on everybody's desk and everybody gets a chance to look at once in a while, maybe. It's meant to be action item oriented. And so there will be initiatives that grow out of this. Some are already coming. I don't want to speak to them yet, but I know some are already coming and some will be in the future. So this has been a really unique approach to how to approach economic development. And I want to give a kudo to our executive director, Kim Robinson, because she was the one who said, let's take this grant and not do the traditional stuff with it, but let's do something new with it and really look at the ways that we can serve communities and help communities in our region. And we wound up going down this road, which is the right road. There's no doubt that there's help needed, that the help is needed, the recognition is needed, and the effort is needed. Next slide. So we have four main goals: to overcome the competition and fragmentation that exists amongst community programs, to help prepare the region for equitable economic resiliency and long-term success, to overcome some of those systemic changes. And a big one that sits to the side, we're a very diverse region when it comes to the size of the communities we deal with. And this board is a great example of that. We have the littlest towns in the middle fields and plain fields to the biggest town of Springfield. And that's anywhere from 500 people to 160,000 people. So there's a wide spread amongst the communities of what their needs are and what needs to happen. And we are working with a consultant in the smaller communities and rural communities to address that as well. Next slide. So there you have it. I'm happy to answer more questions. People can reach out to me to ask questions. I know because of our timing today, I don't have a lot of time, and for that I apologize. But I also thought it was a really good idea when Gary and I talked to each other for me to come over, have a little chat, and inform you guys as to what's going on in another part of the PVPC. We do a lot of different things, is a way to say it. I really enjoy working with Andrew and Dana as colleagues here. And I really appreciate the fact that you gave me a chance to tell my story this morning for just a little while.
Thanks, Eric, for coming in. And I realize that we're not going to have an opportunity to open up for questions, but maybe we could have you come back as you develop that roadmap, and we could talk more about it at that time.
What better place to talk about a roadmap than the JTC?
There you go.
All right. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Eric. Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 5. Andy's going to tell us about our congestion management activities. Go ahead, Andy.
I thought you were going to do it, Dana. No, I was joking. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about here isn't new. It's just kind of a refresher. This presentation I originally presented about a year ago, I'd say, to the JTC, and I just wanted to run through it really fast, just as a reminder of what our current process is. So again, you know, for years and years, we were manually collecting data. This was the only way to really get data at the time. It was really just a snapshot of those moments in time you're out there to get data. We routinely did it during AM and PM peak hours. And obviously there's a lot more traffic than just those 4 hours a day. You know, as we've moved through time, we've been provided access to different data sets. The NP-MRDS, National Performance Measure Research Data Set, was originally provided as a way to measure our performance measures, which are required by the federal government. And more recently, the RITIS, the Regional Integrated Transportation Information System, XD data set. This was purchased by MassDOT as part of the I-95 corridor collaboration. And it's now been shared with basically all the RPAs within the state. And this is very significant because it takes the previous data and provides much more coverage specifically within our region. And this is just a quick overview of the platform. There's several different analysis tools. When we first talked about this, we were talking about the massive data downloader. More recently, we've started using these other functions within the RITIS platform, and that's where we're going with this. But just as a reminder, we're able to go in, you know, zoom very far in and select specific roadways. We're still limited to obviously interstates, national highway system, and then other major roadways within the region. We do not have full coverage. We're probably sitting around a quarter of the region for coverage. Again, you're able to do multiple roadway segments. You can select one or again, as many as you want to look at. So now that we have all this data for our CMP process, it became too burdensome to actually open even as an Excel file. Excel couldn't handle them. So we did a lot of research into other tools that we could use to basically combine all this data together and be able to perform analysis on it. So we're using a program from Microsoft called Power BI Desktop. Here's an example of our 4 data sets we're required to analyze for our performance measures. So you have your evening peaks, your AM peaks, your midday peaks, and then your weekends. And this the top table here is the segmentation file that has all the attributes of the roadway. So we're able to perform our analysis and then merge it all together based on our segmentation. And again, just another snapshot of some of the functionality of the Power BI program. And then as a reminder, these are the measures we use. This is based on our federal requirements for target reporting for our performance measures. So this is how we're doing all our analysis now. Again, just quick idea of how it works. And this was the results that we presented to you last year. This was based on 2019 data. This was what we're calling kind of our bottleneck list. So this was the top percentage of congested locations within our region based on the data available at the time. You can see we have our weekend measure, our PM measure, our midday measure, our AM measure, and then we took our highest event out of those 4 measures, and that's how we rank these bottlenecks. Again, just a coverage map with the actual measures overlaid, so you can see the majority of segments within our region are indeed not considered unreliable. So that's kind of how what you classify the measures as. If it's greater than 1.5, then one of your segments or one of your time periods is considered unreliable. And so this is just a visual that we created based on the 2019 data. Again, at the time, you know, we're still, and to this day, it's still a work in progress. But this process has come a long way, and we feel much more confident in using the process. And again, as a year ago, We're still working to streamline the Power BI process. And then our goal was to update our CMP report and our bottlenecks. And again, do a deeper dive into the bottleneck list. And additionally, there is, I didn't really discuss it, but there is freight data that goes along with this, because one of the performance measures is dealing specifically with freight. So where have we gone in the last year? Let me just pop another screen open here. So what we've done is we now have 2021 data that we're currently in the process of going through, and we're going to generate an updated list for both uses in the bottleneck and for our congestion management process. What we're starting to do now is, if we jump in here, this is our main website. If you go under the planning tab and jump down here to Pioneer Valley MPO, you'll see several subcategories jump open. But if you just actually click on the MPO button, this brings our MPO page up. And right under here on the resource tab, we have this congestion scan, and we actually have been experimenting with doing some localized analysis as well. So the first goal is to get some easily usable information out to the public. So you can see we have two months up here right now. This is just a basic page. What we're working on now with our web designers is creating a custom page where it will have this map that is functional. You can zoom in, and if you actually click on it, it'll open a new page, which I'll show you in a minute. But what we're looking to do here is, for each month, we'll have a map that you can look at, and it's based on a 24, or it's based on 24 hours. So you can move through by hour increments, but we want additional statistics for that month. Where were the top congested locations for this month? What was the average cost to user delay? So we're looking at ways where we can customize this page a little more. So you can just click on a month, and this page opens, and there'll be a bunch of usable statistics on the page. And then if you click on the map, it opens a larger view of it. You can zoom in. You can see exactly what segments are in your town, or and then just an idea. And then again, if you look at the bottom here, you can scroll through. So this is 12 a.m. You can jump it ahead to your peak hour, and then again zoom in on your town. And so this map shows you the coverage area. As you can see, pretty much every town within our region has coverage, but obviously in the rural areas, there's less roadways that are covered. And as you move into the urban core, you can see the coverage is much better. Again, it's not perfect, but we hit most of the major roadways within our region. So again, what we're looking to do is to provide a dashboard or dashboards for each month, where you can come in and get some simple statistics. That may assist municipalities with applying for grants or just whatever you're doing. And then the ultimate goal from this is to go into what we're calling our deep dive into our bottlenecks. So take your top bottlenecks, and this is just a draft example. The layout's not finalized yet. We're still verifying exactly what data we can get easily to include in this document. But here's an idea of where we're going. Here's this is one of our top bottlenecks in 2019. It's DX. I use this as an example because we know we have a TIP project coming up on this. And so we have some good TIP information. And we have some user cost delay, distance for longest bottlenecks and duration. We have this profile part. This is most likely going to change. It still provides some information, but a lot of this may not necessarily be usable for an actual intersection. This would be more for if it was a corridor. If you're looking at a corridor, so you had a significant length of a corridor and those types of things. So this will probably be modified. And then observations, again, this isn't set yet, but this, again, we knew it was a TIP project. So basically we're saying we know this is one of our top congested locations. However, there is an upcoming TIP project. So we'll continue to observe and then revisit this after the construction of the TIP project. And I'll pause there. I see Betsy has a question.
Well, my concern about this whole, being the pedestrian rep, is this whole presentation is vehicle centric.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
this kind of presentation of bottlenecks tends to lead to people thinking, oh, we've got to widen the roadway, we've got to change the lights, we've got to make more accommodations for cars to move more quickly through a corridor, and not change the whole mindset that we're trying to get away from the, you know, in terms of the last 30 years of engineering mindset. You know, how can what in this helps people think about, well, maybe if pedestrians could cross, and how do pedestrians deal with these bottlenecks? How, if more people were able to actually ride their bicycles, you might not have as many vehicles and cars going here. And how do we introduce those kinds of concepts into this presentation here?
Yeah, well, that's
Because I
yeah.
just see this as more of the same.
So
Thank you, Betsy.
So no, it's a great question, Betsy. And so obviously the data that we have available for this part of this is specifically oriented to, you know, automobiles and freight. And because those are the performance measures we're required to report on. Obviously, we have other tools I didn't present in this presentation, but specifically our conveyor tool is specifically oriented to pedestrians and transit users. And we are absolutely using that. And that's probably going to be the other part that will be added into this. That being said, the goal of this, and obviously this example I used because it's a TIP project, and we know it's going to be implementing most of those things you mentioned there, how to improve safety for pedestrians and non-vehicle users of this intersection.
Well, and maybe just some of the text under observations needs to, you know, occasionally mention stuff, you know, things like that. And even this project is still making 300 feet distances between Cross Sumner Ave, and it's still a disaster in my mind for
All right, Dana,
pedestrians.
give me
But,
1 second.
you know, so I'm hoping maybe just we can hint at
Can you hear me now?
some of these other
Okay.
things.
All right, sorry about that. So what I was saying was, so if there's a location that shows up that we don't have a TIP project for, the TIP projects we know are going to have to meet current state and federal requirements regarding users. That's a perfect opportunity for us to say, okay, here's a project or a location that needs to be improved, right? So we're going to, you know, do an expanded study on it. It'll be a proposal for a UPWP. We're going to go in, and at that point, we're going to do a full analysis and say, oh, look, there's no pedestrian crossings here. There's no bike lanes here. There's no, you know, there's no bus stops here. So how do we make this a better functioning intersection? And I know this is only data for the vehicles part of it. But the key here is that we're identifying an intersection, and if it's difficult for vehicles to get through, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult and most likely unsafe for other users to get through. So even though this is only the initial part of it is only based on travel times for automobiles and freight, we see it as a great key that's gonna or a tool that's going to allow additional locations to be studied further. And obviously it's our goal to address you know, a situation for all users. And like I said before, we do have these other tools that when we have these locations, like I said, this is just a draft, it's early on. I just wanted to give a visual. We're still working on layout and what information we can provide. And for some of our other studies, we've already used the conveyor tool to do what we call contours that we overlay, showing how difficult it is for pedestrians and for transit users to actually get anywhere within our region from these locations of concern. So with that, that's more or less, like I said, just an overview. I absolutely want comments on this, Betsy. I'm already got your comments written down.
And that's a great thing. I'm sitting here looking at this yesterday going, what else can we put in here? And that's a great observation. So we'll absolutely plug this into our conveyor and see if we can have a nice visual showing, you know, either how difficult it is just to get from the X anywhere walking, or, you know, what other statistics we have that we can include in there. So what I'm asking the JTC to do is absolutely email me with any comments, questions. If you see something that we can add to this that's going to make it a more usable tool. Again, this is something I want communities to be able to just click on it and look at quick and say, oh, maybe we should go look at that, or maybe we should talk to PVPC or MassDOT about doing something here. So this is by no means finalized yet. It's in the very early stages, but we're working at getting these up on the web so our municipalities can use them.
I wanted
So that data, if there's no questions, we can.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks for doing that update. And what I heard you say is that our initial rollout was based on 2019 data, and you're currently going through and updating it with 2021 data.
That's correct.
And so we haven't even completed that update. Some of the locations are still showing the 2019 data. So as we get it updated, we'll look to integrate the other suggestions that Betsy and other members might have. So any other questions on agenda item number 5, our update of our congestion and bottleneck locations process? Okay.
That was a great presentation, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Appreciate Betsy's comments as well. But you know, to your point, Andy, it's just a tool, and we know that the MassDOT is committed to include multimodal.
Dana, I might be
facilities.
frozen again.
No, you're not, Andy.
not? Okay.
And go ahead, Jose, sorry.
Yeah. So again, you know, I mean, I'm not the funding guy and I'm not the MPO guy either, but I do know that MassDOT it is committed to include multimodal facilities within every single project. It is a, you know, federally mandated thing. But again, it's about tools. It's about, like, you know, how to figure out, you want to focus on what the problem is, and then focus on that, you know, and use tools for that. But at the end of the day, and overall, you need to look at the whole project and use tools to do that. So that was a great presentation, Andrew, and I would love to offline to connect with you. Perhaps you can join us on our GIS group to where we meet so often and share this presentation. Really like it.
Thanks for your comments, Jose. Any other questions or comments on agenda item 5 before we move on to other business? Okay, under other business, we've got the long-range plan. MassDOT recently had a public outreach session in our region, and Andy, you've got a link here for more information on the statewide long-range transportation plan.
Yeah, it's just up there for a reminder that this is underway, and they have a lot of resources on that page.
Thank you. Next item under other business. I am here on an as-needed basis. This is not intended to be a permanent situation where I chair these meetings. So we will have our traditional lull over the summer where we possibly won't meet in either July or August. But as we move into September, we are definitely hoping that someone is going to step forward and assume this role as JTC chair. So please be thinking about that over the next months, and let's look forward to having that position filled in the fall. Finally, I wanted to acknowledge that this will be Wayne Fiden's last JTC meeting. Wayne is retiring at the end of this month. Wayne has been a longtime member of the JTC, and has represented Northampton well over the many years that he has been there. So I want to thank Wayne for his many years of service and wish him all the best in retirement.
Thank you, Dana. That's very sweet.
And is there anything else that anyone else wants to bring up under other business?
I just wanted to quickly say, I already did the long range transportation plan survey. So when I was at NBCOG, I know how to do like the marketing and promotion of it. So I know kind of how critical it is to kind of get the word out, but I just wanted to tell you I completed the survey already.
Great. Thank you very much, Gabe. All right, hearing and seeing nothing else, I'm going to call for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved by Marvin,
Second,
second by Paul. So that is non-debatable. We will see you all next month. Thank you all for coming.
Thanks for all the great